former Marine Corps Sergeant Bill LaFrance. Bill was born and raised in Ticonderoga, New York, below the Canadian province of Quebec. Both he and his wife Nora reside in Libby. Bill has two stepsons, both raised and schooled in Libby. Shandy Bauer lives in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and his younger brother Dory lives in Elgin, Texas, a small town near Austin. Over the years, Bill and Nora have traveled extensively together throughout the Far East. They've been to Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, and China numerous times. Please welcome Bill.
Good morning, everyone, and I'm very happy to be here, along with other members of my VFW post right here in Troy, and also our auxiliary. It's going to be a little difficult to do this, bear with me. I'm getting old, 72, I got to switch my glasses once in a while.
Oh, you're young.
Yeah. Welcome to today's ceremony, and thank you for attending. I was honored to be here with you today on such an important occasion. We're here today to honor our service members and to remember their sacrifices they have made and the courage to take it to defend our honor, duty, and country. We are here today to honor our heroes, to remember their achievements, their courage and dedication, and to say thank you for their sacrifices. Thinking of heroes who join us in this group today, and those who are here only in spirit, a person can't help but feel awed by the enormity of what we encounter. We stand in the midst of patriots and the family and friends of those who have nobly served. I'd like to ask the service members and veterans who are here today to stand. Give them a round of applause, please. To the audience. We have made our armed forces the most respected in the world. Please be seated. Thanks again. Now I'd also like to ask the family members and our auxiliary of any service member to stand. We know that you have lived through the difficult times and often taken the heavy load to keep the home fires burning. Please stand, our auxiliary members. See you, ladies, thank you. Why do we celebrate Veterans Day? Some of you may not totally understand it, but it's just important for us as veterans as it is for you. Because we're here today because we're free, because of the sacrifices made to keep our country this great. Veterans Day is celebrated to honor America's veterans for their patriotism, heroism, and willingness to serve their country in the face of danger. The days pay tribute to all American veterans, living and deceased. Irregardless of the day of the week, Veterans Day is celebrated each year on November 11th. Veterans Day originated as a celebration of the anniversary of Armistice Day. In 1918, on the 11th hour of the 11th month of the 11th day, the cessation of World War I officially took place. 1 year later, in 1919, President Woodrow Wilson officially proclaimed November 11th as a commemoration of Armistice Day. A congressional act approved in 1938 made the date a federal holiday, stating that the day was dedicated to the cause of world peace and to be thereafter celebrated and known as Armistice Day. Following World War II and the Korean War, the 83rd Congress, at the urging from veterans groups, to change the name of the holiday. On June 1st, 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed a bill changing November 11th from Armistice Day to Veterans Day. Each Veterans Day, an official wreath laying ceremony is held at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Washington, D.C. I'd like to give you a little history on myself personally, so you have a better understanding, but my job was during the war. As was mentioned earlier, I was born in New York in 1947. I'm 72 years old now. And after high school in the spring of 1965, I saw a career opportunity with the United States Armed Forces. That summer, I enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps, where I was sent to the recruit depot at Parris Island, South Carolina. I was assigned to the 2nd Battalion, Platoon 259. I excelled there. Of the 120 recruits in my platoon, I was only one of several Marines, selected and promoted to the rank of Private First Class. In December of 1965, I arrived in Da Nang, Vietnam. All incoming personnel were assigned to a barracks awaiting orders for their assignments to infantry units. In the Marines, we refer to infantry units as the grunts, but it's the same thing. As I had taken German in high school, I was assigned to an experimental program being instituted by Commanding General William Lewis Walsh. I was to live among the South Vietnamese people in isolated villages. Our mission would be threefold: village pacification, training their irregular defense forces, and patrolling constantly to protect them from hostile forces, known as the Viet Cong and also the North Vietnamese Army. 3 days later, I was armed with an M14 automatic rifle. Most of you think of M14 as being semi-automatic, but ours were all full auto because we had selector switches on them. I boarded a helicopter and was flown out to the isolated village of Lac Sang. I would be met here by battle-hardened Marines who had arrived just 1 month earlier. I was promoted to the rank of Lance Corporal. Our group was known as Combined Action Company 9, or CAC 9. The enemy engagements here were both fierce and intense. But I didn't realize at the time is the reason I was flown out to this village is because I was a replacement for another Marine who had just been killed there. This was an experimental program, so what General Walt did is he took a squad of Marines and 1 Navy corpsman and stuck them in 4 different isolated villages to defend them to see if it would work against the communist infiltrators that were there constantly. In Lac Sang, I would meet and befriend Lance Corporal Rafael Eduardo Beachy from Costa Rica. He joined the Marines to help support his large family of 10 siblings back home. He would become my first friend killed in action. His name is recorded on the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington, D.C. This was an interesting guy. His English wasn't that great, but he enlisted in the Marines thinking, I can support my family, and not only support my family, but hopefully someday become an American citizen. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. My first duty station at Lac Sang during the day was to check all South Vietnamese at a roadblock checkpoint. They were permitted during the day, light hours, to travel freely if they held a South Vietnamese ID card issued by their government. It was called a Con Cook. I know you folks can't see it out there very well, but I'll explain it to you. It was a light green colored ID card. This is an actual one. This particular girl was killed in our ambush because she decided to fight with the communists and became a political officer. At any rate, on the top of this card is her birthday. She was born on 9/21/1949. She was born in Hanoi. I found out a lot of military background on her from military intelligence. After the French were defeated in Indochina in 1954, her parents, when she was a young girl, migrated to South Vietnam so they could be free of the communist North. It's just like North Korea and South Korea. The North Korea is communist because of us and the Korean War. The South Koreans remained free. On the back of her ID card are also her fingerprints. This is interesting. I have to be very careful how I word this. When I arrived at Lac Sang, my first duty was to check these ID cards from all civilians traveling north and south. So we had checkpoints set up, and there was a Marine corporal and a South Vietnamese Nhiec Nguyen soldier off to the side of the road in a bunker. So my job as the buses or the motorcycles or people came through was to check their ID cards that looked exactly like hers. The thing that made it tough, I was very young at 18, but I wasn't stupid. The Marines that were here had only been there 1 month. None of them spoke a word of Vietnamese, period. So I said to my sergeant, I said, Sergeant, how am I going to talk to these people when I get off the bus to check their ID? He says, Bill, they know the drill. They're going to get off the bus, they're going to come up, their ID card will be next to their face, as long as the face matches the card. Okay, back on the bus. And I'm thinking, this ain't going to work. These Marines that are here now, they're going to rotate home shortly. I'm going to be here for the next 13 months. I've got to learn this language, or I'm not going to survive. So what I did do, every day, here comes the bus, everybody off, ID card, come cook, you wave them back on. I went to our village chief, that's like the mayor of the town, and then you have the suburbs that we call hamlets surrounding them. And his English was broken English, his French was very good. And I asked him, I said, Wie kind bat? I said, how do I say thank you in Vietnamese? And he said, Bill, say, come on, come on. I said, well, how do I say thank you very much? He said, Bill, say, come on, Neil. Got it. Next day, first bus comes, everybody off. Gone cook, up it went. I said, come on. And they kind of looked at me. It's like, none of these Marines have ever said thank you before on the bus. A few more days go by, and I'll never forget it, this one very pretty girl off the bus. Gone cook. Come on, Neil. Now it's thank you very much. So she went back to the bus. That evening, I went back over and saw Lickenbot again, village chief. I said, Lickenbot, how do I say in Vietnamese, I think you're a beautiful girl? And he grinned, and he laughed. He said, Bill, say to them, Toi noi ko dep hua. That means in our language, I think you're very beautiful. A few more days pass. Here comes this girl that gets off the bus. She's in an ao dai. You probably don't know what it is, but it's a Vietnamese dress, and it's buttoned at the top, and it's kind of long and flowing, but the sides come up to about here, and they wear like black pants, silk pants underneath. Well, this girl got off the bus. She had long flowing hair down to about here. And I'm looking at her, and I'm thinking, oh my God in heaven, she's pretty. So her turn comes. Gone cook. Up it came. Come on, Neil. Thank you very much. As she started to walk away, I said, Toi noi ko dep hua. Well, she turned to me, and she kind of smiled, but then she went onto the bus, and I kept checking ID cards. As she got on the bus, she turned to me again, and she waved. And I waved back. Then I thought I was going to go into cardiac arrest. I'm on to something right now. This is a good thing. The Marine over on the side of the road, the South Vietnamese soldier, says to him, hey, Bill, what'd you just say to that girl? I said, I forgot. I'm not the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree, but I'm not stupid here, and I'm onto something. Hold on for just a second here, folks. That's how I learned the language, a little at a time. You know, and then it would be things like, Chief, how do you say Phuket or ambush? Phuket. Or if I'm eating dinner with the Vietnamese, what is it? That's a fish, Bill. Gah. Or it could be a pig. Hell. Every day I'd learn more and more and more and more and more. My next assignment was another South Vietnamese village called Lac Bang. I was promoted to the rank of corporal and became the patrol leader of that village. At this time, I was living among the South Vietnamese people 24 hours a day, and had learned their language quite fluently. I became the interpreter on occasion for Marine Corps Commanding General William Lewis Walt, 3rd Marine FMF, during his visits to our village. Occasionally, I became an interpreter for the grunts when they captured enemy prisoners, or called the VCS. Let me explain something to you here. You should be confused. VCS means Viet Cong suspect, and when the Marines were on an operation, a lot of times they would pick up prisoners not knowing if they were communist soldiers or not. They could be working in the rice fields, they could be doing numerous things with the water buffaloes. Occasionally I'd be called by the grunts. Normally it was from either 1-9 or 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, into the field to do a brief field interrogation. And let me tell you, from speaking the Vietnamese southern dialect, the North was different. So if you had a prisoner here, blindfolded, communication wire tied behind his back, I took his blindfold off, and I said, "What's your name, and where are you from?" If he responded, "My name is Bill LaFrance. I'm from Troy, Montana." Okay. Here's another one here. "What's your name, and where are you from?" "My name is Bill LaFrance. I'm from Troy, Montana." "No, you're not. You're from the North Vietnamese Army. You're not Southern." So that I could tell because of the dialect differences. And there were many dialect differences in Vietnam. In fact, Doc Sargent, here somewhere, here he is, he was in the same type of unit I was. He came a year or two later, where I fought with the South Vietnamese. Doc fought with the Montagnards, the mountain people in the northwestern sector of Vietnam. Actually, it's very unusual in a small community, in a small VFW post, for 2 Marines to have been in the Combined Action Program. There weren't that many of us. In the fall of 1966, I was reassigned for the 3rd time to the village of Tuy Phu. 1 month later, when the non-commissioned officer in charge rotated home, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant and took over his responsibility regarding the safety and security of our village. It was here that I had one of the most heartfelt moments of my life. While in the ambush position with my team, around 02:30 in the morning, a young woman appeared down the trail in front of us. Here's what you need to know. Once it became dark in these villages or these hamlets, the Vietnamese weren't allowed to go out of their home. The South Vietnamese people, you stay in your home or you're going to get shot. The only people that were out at night was us and the enemy. Where I was stationed, the enemy basically ruled the night for quite a while. This girl appeared down the trail from me, and I yelled at her right away. I said, "Stop, or I'll shoot you." And I could have. I had the right to do that. She shouldn't have been out. And I said, "Dong Lai, kum toi bang let mau lin." Stop, or I'll shoot you now. And the reply came, Tosi is the Vietnamese word for sergeant, and they knew me. And Bill, it's Bill here, but in Vietnamese it's Bieu, B-I-E-U. And she replied, Tosi Bieu, please don't shoot me, I'm having a baby. And I thought, oh my God in heaven, I wasn't trained in parasailing for this. So, to say that, Tosi Bieu combatted, helping her off the trail with the assistance of a village elder woman, we call them Ba. She delivered her baby. A short time later, she had a girl. That was one of the most heartfelt moments of my life. I mean, I didn't know what was going on. You know, when she finally came to us, I told her, you know, Maolin, come here quickly. I picked her up, took her to the closest hut I could find, and I thought, oh, Lord in heaven, she's covered with blood. And I'm thinking, this baby's not gonna make it. Well, when I took her inside the hut by fuel oil light, I wasn't gonna put her on this third floor, so I took off my cartridge belt, my shirt, took off my t-shirt, put it under her bottom. Well, I noticed that I really wasn't bloody. As it turned out, I said, Bob, what's the matter with her? She broke her water earlier. So I said, okay. She had a baby girl, and I'll never forget it. That was one of the most heartfelt moments of my life. And I wasn't older than many of you here in this room at this time. During my first 6 months in Thuy Phu, I was engaged with hostile forces 17 times, and fighting was quite often fierce. In mid-January 1967, with my first tour of duty in Vietnam behind me, I was sent home to the States on 30-day leave. I would return to the war for my second tour and was reassigned to the same village I had left 1 month earlier. What you have to understand, and I do well, is I know why men and women of our armed forces today, many have what they call post-traumatic stress disorder. I can understand it. To some degree, I had it myself. When I went home on my 30-day leave, I had a girlfriend in high school, Christine. She had written me on and off while I was in Vietnam, and I went to see her. And by then, you know, she had a new boyfriend, and I didn't blame her. I'd been gone for 13 months. But she said, Bill, you know, you're not the same person I knew. And I says, Christine, I know, but my life has changed forever. So I can understand it. The whole time I was home, all I could think about was the guys I left behind and how many will be left when I get back there. During my second tour of duty, we would be outsmarted by the communist Viet Cong and drawn into an ambush. Here's what happens. I never wore a helmet in the jungle or a flak jacket, that's like a bulletproof vest. I couldn't. If I had a helmet, I couldn't hear well, so I couldn't wear a helmet. A bulletproof vest, we call them flak jackets, I couldn't wear that either. It was too bulky. It was too important for me to be able to read the environment and read the jungle and my surroundings. And by, you know, I'd been there over a year and gone back. Trust me, besides the language, I could read the jungle well. Oftentimes what would happen, and this is interesting, I became with a concerned expert in counterinsurgency, but this part is interesting. We would be in an ambush position at night, and all of a sudden in another hamlet, you might hear one dog bark, and then two dogs, and all of a sudden there's like a chain of dogs barking. I knew right there was a communist patrol passing through that hamlet. It would be just like in town here. If you have houses close together, the first dog barks, what happens? The second chain reaction. Then more dogs will start barking. I could pinpoint where they were just by the dogs. So I normally request permission on my PRC radio to move and try to cut them off. Oftentimes I was successful. But on my second tour, the communists outsmarted me. What they had done is we were out on a patrol and dogs were barking in another hamlet. Once again, I requested permission to head for that hamlet to follow the dogs because I knew it was a communist patrol. Unfortunately, I was outsmarted. The Viet Cong had drawn me into an ambush. They had done is they had deliberately had 2 or 3 men run around this other hamlet, get the dogs barking. In the meantime, they were in an L-shaped ambush with a machine gun in the schoolhouse, waiting for us to arrive. During my second tour of duty, we'd be outsmarted by the communist Viet Cong and drawn into an ambush. Of the 3 Marines and 9 South Vietnamese on my patrol, we took extensive casualties for a much larger force. I would be shot in the left chest and hit with a hand grenade. The war in Vietnam for me was over. After recovering from my wounds back in the States, my first duty station, one of several, became the Marine Corps Guerrilla Warfare Training Center at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Considered an expert in counterinsurgency, I became a guerrilla warfare training instructor for all Marines destined for Vietnam. Among my military awards and decorations include the Purple Heart, Combat Action Ribbon, Presidential Unit Citation, Good Conduct Medal, National Defense Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry Medal, Vietnamese Civil Action Ribbon, Vietnam Campaign Ribbon, and I was a Marine Corps sharpshooter, so I received the Sharpshooter's Medal as well. At the conclusion of my military service, I continued my education under the GI Bill. I went to college and 4 years later earned a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering. I then worked in the private sector until my retirement. I'm a very proud member of several veterans organizations, including the John E. Freeman VFW Post 5514 here in Troy, the American Legion Post 97 in Libby, the Disabled American Veterans Chapter 7 in Kalispell, the 3rd Marine Division Association, and the Marine Corps Association in Quantico, Virginia. We have a few more minutes here, so I can put this down and change my glasses. Thank you. Here's the good news. When I was a little kid in the 8th grade, I was behind a curtain like this. And my music teacher said, "Billy, when the curtain opens, you're going to sing Moon River by Andy Williams to the graduating students and their parents for the 8th grade." So I was back there and the curtain's closed. And all of a sudden, the curtain opens and I'm looking out like this and here's all these kids. Like a rocket, I ran off the stage. There was no Moon River by Andy Williams. The teacher kept saying, "Get back out there, back." No, I can't do it. Here's the great news. Had I had stage fright this morning, with my reading glasses, I can't see it. I'm over. But if anybody has a few questions that they'd like to ask before I conclude, I'll try to answer them for you to the best I can. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Someone in the back here, I'm sorry. I don't hear well, sir, but you have to speak up. Is it anybody got a hand back there? Yes, sir.
Is it possible to get over PTSD?
I'm sorry?
Is it possible to get over PTSD?
That's a hard question to answer. I mean, just like I mentioned to you earlier, I never forgot Lance Corporal Raphael at Borgo Beach. That's never going to happen. I mean, that's here. That was my best friend. But the one thing you need to know is there is help available. There's counseling out there and people willing to help you get over it or at least get through it to the point you can put it behind you. That raises another point. That was a very good question, by the way, young man. Thank you. Listen, I want to mention this real quick. The one thing about the Marine Corps is we kept our units tight. We were close. We were brothers. We didn't bully anybody. I hope none of you become bullies, or what do you call it, with your text messaging, trying to hurt somebody else. Because someday what's going to happen is they may become an EMT, a police officer, a fireman, and that person you bully may save your life. So if you do that, please don't do it anymore. Uh-oh, I think I'm in trouble. I better wrap this up. Listen, in behalf of a grateful nation, I thank you so much for coming here. You are the future of our country. When I leave today, I won't be around when you kids go on with your careers and your futures and your families. But no, I'll never forget you. And from my heart, God bless you all. God bless America. And I salute you. Thank you.
We'd like to take a moment to thank our veterans and to ask that any veteran and their family would please join us in recognizing your service. When you hear your service song, please stand.
The U.S. Army.
Fight for the right and to build the nation's might, then the Army goes rolling along. Until the battle's won, and the Army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the Army's on its way. Camped off the cadence loud and strong, 2, 3, for wherever we go, you will always know that the Army goes rolling along.
The Marine Corps.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of the battles in the air and the land sea. First to fight for rights and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines.
The U.S. Navy.
Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Sail at break of day, through our last night ashore, hail to the foe. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home.
The U.S. Air Force.
Off we go into the wild blue beyond. Meet our thunder, attaboys to the gun. Down we rise, starting our plane from under, all with one terrible roar. We live in fame, or go down in flames.
one more time so we can give you a round of applause. Thank you all for your service. We do have a breakfast. If you can join us at the elementary this morning, I know the little kids would love to see everyone.
So I hope you got something out of that video. You can subscribe over here, check out some other videos down here, and you can always reach out to me at ben@nwmtnow.org. Thank you.